Imaginary worlds have long held the fascination of many people. Franchises based on imaginary worlds, such as Star Wars, Marvel superheroes, and Harry Potter, are worth billions of dollars today. There's just something about works of fiction centered on imaginary worlds that just make you want to keep on reading or watching, or even create an imaginary world of your own. Let us explore the development of these fantastical works of fiction. The fantasy genre has had a resurgence in recent years, both in terms of prestige and popularity. But the fantasy genre has actually long been the dominant form of literature. In fact, pretty much all works of fiction used to be in the fantasy genre. People did not write realistic works of fiction until recently. The first known work of fiction, the Epic of Gilgamesh, involved gods, demigods, monsters, and mysterious journeys to far off places, and this work of fantasy was written around 4,000 years ago. One of the most popular works of ancient Greek literature, the Odyssey, tells the tale of a warrior returning home from defeating the Trojans. He gets thrown off course and spends years wandering the Mediterranean seas, dealing with supernatural entities like cyclopses and sorceresses who turn men into pigs. Ancient Greece had its share of realistic works of fiction, but even those often involved supernatural elements. For example, Oedipus Rex, the story of a man who unknowingly kills his father and marries his mother, could have worked perfectly fine as just a normal realistic family drama. However, all of this was prophesied by an oracle and revealed to Oedipus's parents beforehand, leading them to send Oedipus off to ensure that the prophecy never comes true, even though it does. Some of the most popular works of fantasy fiction during the Middle Ages were stories about King Arthur and his court. There were many different legends of the famed Briton king. One version said that he obtained the magical sword Excalibur by getting it from a magical lady in the lake. Another version said that he was able to pull it out of a stone that no one could dislodge it from. After the Renaissance, fantasy fiction seemed to get less popular, while more realistic fiction seemed to get more popular. But by no means did fantasy fiction disappear though. In 1726, Jonathan Swift published Gulliver's Travels. This fictional travelogue featured a British man going to a number of fantastical and hilarious countries, such as Lilliput, a country full of tiny people, Brobdingnag, a country full of giant people, and the land of the Houyhnhnms, a land where the horses were smart and the people were stupid. Jules Verne is regarded by many as one of the founders of the genre of science fiction. His novels written in the 1800s often depict adventurers exploring far-off places. For example, in Journey to the Center of the Earth, Jules Verne imagines underground caverns full of prehistoric creatures, and even cavemen. Some of the earliest novels that full-on transported readers to another world have got to belong in the John Carter of Mars series, published by Edgar Rice Burroughs in the early 1900s. This series of popular novels details a former Confederate soldier who wakes up one day and finds himself mysteriously transported to Mars. This Mars isn't the dead red planet that we know it is today, though. This Mars is teeming with aliens who are fighting with other aliens, and John has to find some way of dealing with them all in order to survive. Of course, one of the most influential works of fantasy fiction is J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. This is the novel that put medieval fantasy back on the map and made elves, dwarves, and orcs fantasy staples. Almost every work of medieval fantasy today, from novels like the Shannara Chronicles and The Wheel of Time to video games like Dragon Age and Elder Scrolls, has been heavily influenced by the Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings not only featured a fully fleshed out imaginary world full of exotic lands and magical beings, it also included its own intentionally constructed fictional languages that look and feel like actual languages. Many other works of fantasy fiction would follow suit with their own fictional languages, like Klingon in Star Trek and Dothraki and Valyrian in Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones is one of the most stunning works of fantasy fiction on television. Featuring stunning landscapes, great special effects, and excellent production values in general, The Game of Thrones proved not just popular with fantasy fiction lovers, but also with the general audience. In addition, the series has dark and complex storylines that really pushed the limits of storytelling on television. Science fiction imaginary worlds, such as the far, far away galaxy in Star Wars, have proven very popular too. In Star Wars, George Lucas crafted an epic series of films full of characters, creatures, planets, and belief systems that have seeped into mainstream popular culture. What American today isn't familiar with Yoda, Darth Vader, or the Jedi? Imaginary worlds are especially popular in video games. That shouldn't be too surprising because many people play video games to escape the regular world for a while. Games such as the Elder Scrolls series contain extensive lore and fully fleshed out worlds. Because of the interactive nature of video games, players are able to feel like they are transported to a completely new world while they are playing. Of course, imaginary worlds in video games aren't limited only to the medieval fantasy genre. There are many different video games set in all sorts of worlds. The Pokémon series, popular among all ages, features an imaginary world filled with magical creatures that people can collect and use in battles. This world could almost be considered a mundane, alternate universe reality of our own if we ignored the magical creatures roaming around everywhere. Some imaginary worlds featured are even more like our own world. The Grand Theft Auto series features a number of fictional places that are thinly veiled representations of real-life places. It is blatantly clear that Liberty City is supposed to be New York City, Vice City is supposed to be Miami, and San Andreas is supposed to be California. The game basically offers players a way to do things in our world without the real-life consequences. But if the world you want to explore isn't any imaginary world currently existing, you can always try to create a world of your own. Released in 2011, Minecraft offered players a way to do just that. You can design the world just the way you want to, or you can let the game create the world for you. The options are nearly limitless in a sandbox game like Minecraft. Or if even Minecraft is too much of a constraint on your imagination, you can always just pick up a pencil and paper, or a computer or a phone or something like that, and just create an imaginary world of your own, however and whichever way you like it. In fact, you don't even actually need to write it down anywhere if you don't want to. People have been creating imaginary worlds for eons without writing anything down. There are absolutely no limits to the kind of world you can create other than the limits of your imagination. Thank you for watching the video. If you would like to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to click like and subscribe.